This year, the London Community Gospel Choir celebrates its 30th birthday. From being the first concert choir of its kind in the United Kingdom, it has simply gone from strength to absolute strength, entertaining their audiences with funky gospel, swing beat, R&B, traditional and soulful music. There's even some invigorating choreography that looks like a workout. Well, in a moment, I'll be talking to the man who started it all, the Reverend Bazil Meade, and finding out how his music has taken him to Africa and elsewhere in the world. But first, let's take a look at the choir and Bazil in action. You've got an amazing set of lungs on you.
It's taken many years to develop.
I mean, are gospel singers born or are they made?
They develop. The majority of them have grown up in church. I mean, they probably started singing in the children's choir age 4, 5, 6. And then have progressed from there, and that is where the lungs begin to develop. They learn how to deliver with intensity and power. So yes, they develop and they grow into who they are.
And you talked about the church as well, because it's worth remembering that gospel is obviously born in the church, but it's also spawned some amazing singers who've left that tradition and they've gone mainstream, but they've still taken some of those elements with them into their new careers.
Yeah, you don't lose the manner in which we present music. The feeling that singing about your faith, and you learn to embrace music very deeply, and that inspires your delivery, so the intensity, the emotion. And many of the singers, as you've rightly said, who have gone into soul and R&B and all the other genres, have taken that with them, and that is what makes them unique and special. OK, so 30 years ago, it all started. So how did it start? What was the trigger? The trigger was a desire to have gospel music being played on radio, because it wasn't back then. All the other genres were represented on radio and TV, but nothing about gospel. And I felt, myself and a few of the other leaders of their choirs, felt that, well, you know, we're here, it'd be great to turn the radio on and hear a local gospel choir or singers being played, being celebrated, and that was one of the motivations actually to have us starting the London Community Gospel Choir. Okay, so you've got all these gospel choirs. Picking the best singers, I mean, the rivalry must have been pretty intense. It still is. Right. I suppose back then we accepted all those who had this passion, shared the passion. We were quite hard on the singers who came to audition, but if they had the passion, if they had the faith, we invited them. And it was later on we began to say, well, we need to make the standards much higher, and then we began auditioning again, and we raised the bar, and so gradually the bar has been getting higher all the time. So the quality and the standard is raising all the time. And you certainly got a sense of that from that clip that we saw just now. I mean, how many singers are there in the choir? Because in that picture alone, it looked pretty substantial. I think that was our festival at the our choir festival, 30 choir festival at the Royal Festival Hall. We had about 50 singers on that. But in the 80s, when we first began, we were over 100 singers. Over 100? Over 100. It was huge. We toured, we went to Scandinavia, Sweden, in fact, to tour in 1986 or 7. And we had to use 2 buses to take the choir around. It was amazing. It was amazing. And the numbers expanding all the time. I mean, yeah. Your music's taken you around the world. You mentioned there Norway, but I mean, more recently, you've been taking your music to countries like Tanzania, but that's in your capacity as an ambassador for Compassion International. Before we talk about that, let's get a clip of you in action again.
Could you help me to keep time? You be my percussions, my drummer, all right? Do this for me, everybody. Lord, I want you to protect me as I travel on.
I mean, this big smile crossed your face when you saw that clip. What were the memories it brought back?
Because I started the song too high. That's
You started it too high. it didn't sound painful.
No, oh, I was reaching for those notes. I think I managed it, but
I think you did more than manage it. You just slipped into it. It's very easy.
Oh, that's very complimentary. Yeah. It was a great experience because there were all these young teenagers who were aspiring to be whatever they wanted to be, and it was meeting them, poverty, but yet they had such great ambitions. Their smiles, enthusiasm for life was there. And I learned a lot from being there, and I think that's what I get from being an ambassador for Compassion International.
Because some of these kids, they're not doing terribly well at school, and it's very easy for the system to just wash its hands of them.
Yeah.
And so music's the way back in.
Music is one way that they can find themselves, and you know, they asked me to give them a song, and they conveniently had a keyboard there because they knew that I lead the choir, so I must be able to play, and so yes, I did that quite on the spur of the moment.
Yeah, and I know there's one particular child as well that you've personally helped out. I mean, tell us a little bit about her.
Yeah, she's. I actually met her.
That's her there in the picture.
Yeah. Met her for the first time when I went out. I actually sponsored her, and I met her mother, who passed away not long after I left, because she was ill. And it was very moving for me, very touching moment for me and the other ambassadors who were there. In fact, I had an iPad with me, and after we were introduced, we got on a bus to go to her home, and she took hold of my iPad and immediately switched it on and started using it. And I was totally blown away by it. I was wondering how on earth, because she's not had one before. She's not touched one before. So, you know, it shows her capacity to learn, and
sure.
It shows it that, you know, once these children get the opportunity to be exposed to learning, to education, they will grow. And it's basic things that they need, like food, clothing, and so forth. So it's one of the special things that gives me a lot of pleasure at the moment.
So that's a great new friendship that's emerged from your work with Compassion International.
She's become my adopted daughter, so I look after her.
OK, we've got about 40 seconds left, but I mean, tell us what your projects are for the future with the choir and where we can see you.
We're in the Hideaway Jazz Venue, Jazz Club on the 30th and 31st of this month. So next weekend, people want to come along and see the choir. We use a small team, 7 singers plus the band. Great show. You can eat there.
Okay.
Come and see us.
We certainly will. We might even audition as well, because I'm sure you need to replenish the vocal stock.
I'd love to audition you when you're ready.
OK, I'll hold you to that. Reverend Bazil Meade, thank you so much for joining us here on
Thank
Arise
you.
News.